I'll never forget the day. The day when the magic of the Christmas season was taken from me, ripped from my heart, replaced with fear and horror. December 22nd, 2013, at 8:30 a.m. I remember it like it was yesterday. The month was unusually warm. There hadn't been any snowfall yet. On that day, it was cold and gray. The heavy snow-laden clouds were rolling in to bring the first snow of the season. When I looked out our kitchen window, I thought about how nice it would be if we could have a white Christmas. The kids, Kelsey, who was 7 at the time, and Jojo, who was 6, were dying to put on their new boots and coats and mittens and scarves. They wanted to make a snowman. They were both checking out the window every few minutes. The night before they'd done their superstitious routines to make it snow. They'd worn their pajamas inside out, flushed ice down the toilet, and slept with a spoon under their pillows. My husband and I had combined our childhood superstitions and told the kids about them, and we enjoyed the spectacle of it all and the joy in their eyes. Even then, they were waiting to reap the rewards of all those things, still wearing their PJs inside out, when the doorbell rang. It was unusual for someone to come to the house that early in the morning, especially on a Sunday during school break, I thought. I pulled my robe around tight and started for the door, but my husband got there before me. I could hear a man's voice on the other side of the door, and my husband's voice becoming increasingly louder. It was then that my husband turned and called for me to come to him, while asking the 2 police officers to come in. I went and stood next to my husband, and he whispered, "Have the kids go into the other room to watch their cartoons." His brow was furrowed, his cheeks red. I looked from him to one of the officers, a young kid, I thought, not even 25 yet. His eyes expressing some emotion, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Not yet, anyway. The other officer was older, maybe 50, but he didn't have much gray in his hair. I could see it as he took off his cap and said, "Ma'am." I called for the children to come into the other room and instructed them to watch their television shows in there while Mama and Daddy spoke with the nice police officers. But my stomach was churning. It couldn't be good news to have officers on your doorstep this early on a Sunday morning. I was dreading what was to come next. My parents, my brother, now, just before Christmas. Why? How? My mind was buzzing as I walked into our kitchen. The 2 police officers were sitting at my kitchen table. Scott was pouring them coffee. His hands were shaking. I didn't understand this seemingly normal activity when surely they were here to convey something horrific, something life-changing. The older officer asked if I could take a seat across from him. I didn't want to. I knew this would be the moment that something terrible would be seared into my memory. I looked to Scott, and he motioned his head to do as the officer asked. So I sat down, and Scott handed me coffee as well. I didn't pick up my mug. I feel like I can remember every detail as if it was in slow motion. The younger officer had an orange envelope in his hand, the kind you mail packages in. On it was an address written in scrawling penmanship, big and little letters mixed together, some half-cocked, some underneath the rest of the word. It was childlike. The older officer took the envelope. His eyes looked tired. Blue eyes, with long eyelashes, red-rimmed and bloodshot. Then they started to tell us a story that seemed almost insulting at first, something like a prank. I began to feel angry, thinking that this was some joke. Here I was prepared to hear devastating news, as prepared as I could be. But they continued. Scott held onto my hand. He was willing me to keep my temper under control. They told us that beginning 2 weeks ago, every morning at exactly 7 a.m., there would be an envelope just like this one, and it would appear on a desk in the precinct, the younger officer's desk, in fact. And in every envelope there were pictures of young children in their homes, taken from what appeared to be inside their own house. The pictures were innocent enough. Just children being tucked into bed or brushing their teeth, some watching TV or doing some homework. The first 2 envelopes they had ignored. They were thinking it was a prank. There had been a little note inside, written with the same lettering as the envelope had on it, but then the children in their first 2 envelopes had been brutally murdered in their sleep. 3 of them so far. I hadn't heard this on the news. I said that to them, and they told me that they hadn't released anything to the media yet, but they were going to have to soon because the 3rd envelope came with the same note, and when they went to investigate, they found another child still in bed, dead, and his babysitter as well. Now, as soon as they received the envelopes, which no one ever saw delivered, not even on surveillance cameras, the package would just materialize. He said he knew that it sounded crazy, but to please bear with them. Now, when they received the package with the address of the child or children, they would immediately go to their home, and that's why they were there that day. He opened the envelope and took out the photos of my children. They were dressed with their pajamas inside out, hiding a spoon under their pillows, saying their prayers. I screamed, "What does the note say?" The officer slid it to me, and scribbled on a post-it note was simply, "Please stop me. Elf on a shelf." My heart stopped and I jumped up and ran to the study. I had just moved the elf there this morning when I woke up. The children were in there now. It was the room I had taken them to. I was panicking. Disbelief, fear mixed in my mind, and as I pushed open the door, my children both jumped. Scared looks came across their little faces. The elf, off the shelf, now sitting on the back of the couch. The officers took the doll from our home, and Christmas has never been the same.